Mary had a little man.
The fault, dear Brutus.
Liftoff. The clock has started.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
So the law isn't on Bundy's side, the court isn't on Bundy's side, even the Nevada State Constitution, which Bundy claims to abide, isn't on Bundy's side. Who the hell is on this guy's side?
Have you thought about why you think your case has resonated so much with the American people?
Hannity. I still don't get it.
It's not like they want to build a school, a road, or a hospital. That land's going to stay vacant whether or not your cattle are on it or not, right? And by the way, when your cattle graze there, that keeps the price of meat down for every American consumer.
Yeah, most goods are cheaper when you steal the raw materials necessary to make them. In fact, have you seen the prices at Fell Off a Truck Mart? So apparently Sean Hannity thinks laws are served buffet style, and that you can pick and choose the ones that you like best. The ones that you don't like, you don't have to abide. Well, that's not going to sit well with Fox's immigration/healthcare law expert pundit, a Mr. Sean Hannity.
You only believe we should obey the laws that you want to obey. You don't, that's it? Obey the laws that you like.
No.
That's all? Why don't you join with me, Juan, and say everybody should obey the law? Tell me how the president can unilaterally pick and choose what parts of the law he's going to uphold at whatever time he chooses.
I mean, the guy's not even wearing a cowboy hat. The president doesn't get to choose.
He's a jackass.
This story won't go away. Will it go away before the show goes away? Will they find the plane before May 16th? At least I can take solace in this. Racism ended before the Randi Rhodes Show did. Racism is over. It's over. I just made it under the wire. Well, I've been working my whole life to try and, mend this country, and bring it together and, help everybody, understand how we got here and how we get out of here and, to orient people to the facts of life and, get them to navigate their own way after that. It's pretty much what the deal was here. And now I can leave. I can go because racism is over. It's done. Did you know that? I know this because the Supreme Court told me so. I know this because the Supreme Court said we don't need the Voting Rights Act anymore because there was no more racism. And I know this because today the Supreme Court upheld Michigan's affirmative action ban. Now, the law is always double negative, so it's a little hard. You got to, wade through it. But what the Supreme Court did today was they didn't debate the difficult subject of racial preferences and how those should be resolved. They didn't deal with white supremacy making a comeback in America. They certainly didn't deal with the fact that when they gutted the Voting Rights Act of 1965, that states were leaving skid marks. You need Duluth underwears is what you need, states. They were leaving skid marks. I mean, they were moving so fast toward, repealing these voting rights that people had died and been lynched and had marched and had been beaten and had dogs sicked on them to get. They just said simply we don't need them anymore, and the states made a beeline for their legislatures to undo those protections so that African Americans would have access to the polls the same way that other Americans do. It was like egg timer, schmeg timer. It was so unbelievable. It was so fast that, like I said, they just they left skid marks. It was like posse traction. It was amazing. But the Supreme Court today upheld a voter initiative that banned racial preferences in admissions to public universities in that state. They said it's not about whether or not we need these laws, and it's not about whether or not we choose to acknowledge that there's racism in admissions or that there will be if we, It's about who gets to decide, and they decided that the majority Yeah, the majority of the Supreme Court and the majority of voters who outnumber African Americans by about 89%, that the voters get to say. The voters get to select their barrier, is basically what they said. And Sonia Sotomayor, who obviously knows she never would have been a Supreme Court justice had it not been for affirmative action policies that helped her get to school and law school. And, Clarence Thomas, he doesn't give oral, so he said nothing. But, he's an affirmative action baby, too. But said nothing. He just, he's not very good at, the oral, which I hear is an epidemic, but not in my life. But Justice Sonia Sotomayor, she read a 12-minute dissent from the bench and said the Constitution does not protect racial minorities from political defeat, but neither does it give the majority free rein to erect selective barriers against racial minorities. Well, yes, it does, because that's what the Supreme Court said today, and they were outnumbered 6-2. Yes, that doesn't equal 9 for those of you who still can add, but that's because Elena Kagan had to, opt out. Apparently, she had worked on this issue at the Justice Department and felt she needed to recuse. So there you have it. Racism is over in America, according to the Supreme Court. We don't need voter protections, and we don't need admission policies that, would help, break down the barriers for people who, perhaps suffered through institutional racism or a tax code that didn't fund their schools properly, or any of the other crime in their neighborhoods, or just any of the numerous obstacles that are put in the way of poorer people, people who don't have the same advantages as let's say legacy admissions, which is really fascinating because they didn't say that affirmative action should end for legacy admissions. What's a legacy? A legacy simply means that if your father, I don't know, like who could I use an example? The pressure of a name. Like the Bushes. That if your father went to Yale, that you get extra points for being the winner of the Lucky Sperm Contest and being born to somebody who went to Yale, even though you're a C student. But you get extra credit because your father was, somebody who went there. That's called a legacy. 1969, 1982, the Supreme Court has been hacking at this stuff for years, okay? But the court said, for a black student seeking the adoption of a constitutionally permissible race-conscious admissions policy, that student could only do one thing to effect change. She could attempt to amend the Michigan Constitution, a lengthy, expensive, and arduous process. But if you were a legacy, you could lobby the admissions committee. You could petition the leadership of the university. You could seek to influence the school's governing board. Or, as a measure of last resort, you could initiate a statewide campaign to alter the state's constitution. The same cannot be said for a black student. So I'm just so glad that I've been a broadcaster long enough to see the end of racism, both in voting and in school admissions and in school funding. I'm so relieved that that's all over. I just really am. We actually have had affirmative action since pretty much JFK was the first one to ever mention it, but there was no, there was no legislation or, there was nothing. He just said that federally funded projects, and then the quote was, take affirmative action to ensure that hiring and employment practices were free of racial bias. That's Kennedy's, first foray, and that's where we get the term affirmative action, meaning you have to do things in the affirmative to make sure you're not discriminating, to actually overcome your, bias. And then when LBJ went to Howard University, which is a traditionally black college, in 1965, he actually established enforcement guidelines and some documentation procedures for federal contractors so that they had to start keeping track. And then in 1967, we added women. So, women are next. You understand that. this war is not just on, one minority. It's on all minorities. I mean, here we are trying to increase the number of people who have their civil rights, right? And, of course, there's a majority in this country that is, in power. I don't know that it's the majority of Americans, but the majority that holds power in this country, they are working affirmatively to deny equal pay to women. They are working in the affirmative to deny, equal treatment under the law for gays and lesbians in contracting. Obviously, contracting is a big damn deal in this country. And, by that I mean marriage, because that's nothing but a state-issued contract. And you know that because to get divorced, you have to go to the court, right? You can't go to the church. You have to go to the court. Now, some religions require you do both, but most don't. However, we're done with it. We don't need it anymore. Women somehow will figure out how to get the same pay as men. Somehow. One day. It'll dawn on us. It's just our own, lack of fortitude or it's our thoughtlessness or it's our work ethic that just blows. And this is why we don't, we'll figure it out one day. And the same thing can be said. African Americans, you'll figure it out one day. You'll figure out where the institutional racism is, and somehow you'll overcome it without the help of legislation, without the help of institutions, without the help of government. You'll just, throw yourself on the mercy of the corporation or throw yourself on the mercy of the university or throw yourself, and it'll work. It'll just work. And the same for, gays. So here we are trying to extend civil liberties, and the other side of the coin is taking them away. But they're affirmatively taking them away. They're writing it down and voting on it. And the majority decided that the minorities in this country, whether they be Jews, because, we have to be hunted now. Oh, by the way, that mayor in Marionville who loved Glenn Miller, Fraser Glenn Miller, who, he supported him. He thought that everything he said was right about Jewish bankers and Jewish companies and, all that. He just resigned. And, that's important. You know why? He was shamed into resigning. He was shamed. And so I think that's probably going to be the tool in your toolbox. Shame is very powerful, and I believe in it. Shame and banishment. Do you know what I'm saying? It's all we got. It's all we got. Daniel Clevenger, he was the mayor. He resigned. He never apologized for his comments. He never retracted them because I guess if he had to choose, he would rather be a white supremacist than he would be mayor. Because he had a choice. Apparently, being mayor is harder than being a grand dragon, and he's chosen. Because he called that guy that went into the Kansas City old folks home, right, hunting for Jews, he called him an old friend. He said he kind of agreed with him. In what world is kind of agreeing acceptable if you're a white supremacist? I mean, can you be a little bit supremacist? I don't think that. I think they're purists. I just, I think that's the whole underlying theme of being a white supremacist, purist. You know what I mean? But hey, racism is over. It's just, it is. And phew, thank God they did it just under the wire. Just under the wire. I have lived. I made it to the mountaintop. I have seen the promised land. 19 after.
Randi Rhodes.
Making the world a better place, whether the world wants it or not. This is the Randi Rhodes Show.
Hi, Phoenix. Call me right now at 866-87-RANDY, 866-877-2634. This is the Randi Rhodes Show on 1480.
Turn down the noise, turn up your mind with Randi Rhodes on Premier Radio Networks.
You can hit the whole world with the internet. Stay out of my yard.
The Smiths were having an egg hunt with their 3-year-old son. An Easter Sunday tradition interrupted after an upsetting discovery.
My husband noticed the last Easter egg, and I knew that wasn't one of the ones I'd put out. He picked it up, and we opened it, and it's got the white supremacist stuff in it.
Inside the egg was the message, "Diversity is white genocide," saying, quote, "Mass immigration and forced assimilation of non-whites into our lands is genocide."
It's absurd.
Brandon Smith went around their College Hill neighborhood looking for more of the eggs and alerting parents so other children wouldn't find them.
We don't want other kids who can read and being like, "Hey, Mommy, what's the Million Man White March?" Or, you know, "What's the White Genocide Project?" Most of us don't want to explain genocide to our 6-year-olds.
It's very disturbing knowing that my son is walking around the yard a lot and finding that, and just that's something that he may find and have questions about, that not necessarily at his age that I want to have to explain to him, that there are people in this world who don't think everyone is equal.
They found several more eggs in people's yards, leaving residents in disbelief.
Everybody's shocked. I would say we're genuinely just floored at, why would somebody do this? Why here?
Because they're white supremacists. That's why. That was in Virginia over the weekend. Happy Easter, everybody. Happy Easter. Oster, goddess of fertility. That's what you're actually celebrating, you know, is fertility is what it is. But I'm just, you know, white power eggs. Over Easter, some parents in Virginia found Easter eggs that had been planted in their yard, and when you opened the eggs, there were messages in there that said, "Diversity equals white genocide," which really detracts from the true meaning of Easter, which I think has become, you know, eating chocolate. I think that's what it. How could chocolate, you know, be so mean? I don't understand. And you know, this is why white supremacists are so stupid. They're using Easter eggs as a recruiting tool to white supremacy for children. Now think about this: you're a kid, and you're expecting candy, and you open up your egg. And whatever's in there that isn't candy, you are going to hate that thing, no matter what that thing is. You remember when, like, the trick-or-treat lady would, like, give you a pencil instead of candy on Halloween? I still hate pencils because of that. Do you know what I'm saying? If white supremacists had any brains at all, they would hide eggs with messages in them like, "Diversity equals..." instead of candy, and then everybody would hate diversity. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just like they're not that smart. They're not that supreme, is what it is. The supreme ones are not supreme. They have no ability to think. Which is why you have to shame them. It is. You know, you can present them with any number of facts. You can show them why we still need, you know, affirmative action. You can show them why we still need voting rights protections. You can show them that there is no voter fraud. You can show them all kinds of factoids, and you can show them all kinds of hard evidence. You can show them all kinds of reports. And you know what? It just makes them angrier. It just makes them furious because they are married to the lie. And nothing shall put that lie asunder, okay? Not man, not print, not nothing. And so all that's left is to shame them and to banish them from the kingdom, make them, marginalize them. You know, like this Marionville mayor. I mean, they gave him a decision to make. Do you want to be a grand dragon, or do you want to be the mayor of the city? And he chose, you know, where his heart lies.
Marionville's mayor, Dan Clevenger, owns a repair shop. He's known Fraser Miller for years, but not always by that name.
When I first met him, he called himself Fraser Mays. I think that was spelled M-A-I-S, if I remember right. And then all of a sudden he started calling himself Fraser Miller.
Despite the name change, Clevenger says Miller's biased beliefs stayed strong.
I kind of agreed with him on some things, but I don't like to express that too much.
That hasn't always been the case. Nearly a decade ago, Clevenger wrote this letter to the editor, calling Fraser a friend and wanting to spread Miller's warnings. He spoke of the Jew-run medical industry that, quote, made a few Jews rich by killing us off.
It goes on. Seriously, it's over, though. I mean, there is no need to have, you know, we don't need to right any discriminatory wrongs because there is no discrimination in our country. There's only equal opportunity. That's all there is. Even though you could find racial hatred just by turning on the radio or watching the TV now. going to a real estate agent or an unemployment office or housing.
Right, in your area, in Michigan, you know there are militant Muslims, jihadists, correct?
Absolutely not.
Okay, absolutely not?
I don't even know.
Absolutely, are you saying
there are no militants? I'm saying to you that I don't know if there is a militant jihadist in Detroit. I don't even know if there are militant jihadists in New York. I think I praise and I thank the mayor for his action. This is the American way.
Well, no, wait. No speeches tonight, Mr. Sablani.
To protect the people and to protect their rights.
Okay, fine.
You're elected to protect the rights of the people, not to harass them.
I just want to get back to you, and you are saying to me that you don't know one militant mosque in Michigan. You're not aware of one. Is that what you're saying to me?
Absolutely not. It's a figment of your imagination, Bill.
All right. So you do not accept that there are any militant mosques operating in Michigan. We know there are militant mosques operating in the New York City area because they have been observed.
I think you should call the FBI.
We know, though. I have called the FBI.
Bill's called the FBI. You see, this is just another form of racism. That's what I'm talking about. You could turn on the TV and you can see it. Because he was talking to a guy named Osama. His name is Osama Simblani, and he's the publisher of Arab News here in America. Bill decided to have him on the show and ask him about militant Muslims in Detroit. And he's like, I have no idea, if there's militant Muslims. But if you think that there are, why don't you call the FBI? If you suspect somebody is plotting against your country, call the FBI. That's what I would do. I'd call the FBI. But they put these things on the TV to implicate all Muslims. 7 million people in this country. All terrorists. All evil. This is what goes on every single day. And then the Supreme Court looks at it and says, there's no more problem in this country. We don't have a problem with anti-Semitism. We don't have a problem with white supremacy. We don't have a problem with institutionalized racism. We don't have a problem with, integration in this country. We don't have a problem with, people thinking all terrorists are Muslims. You know what's really interesting is Osama Simblani continued his conversation with Bill, and he said, listen, I'll be the first to call the FBI if I think somebody is trying to hurt my country. But what about Ivan Lopez? What about the Fort Hood shooter? What about him? And Bill O'Reilly had no earthly idea who Ivan Lopez was.
If I know of someone who is trying to hurt our country and our people, I will be the first one to call the FBI and tell about it.
And I don't doubt that. But I think you are terribly naive because there are militant jihadists in this country, and they use mosques sometimes to spread their word. Now, when the authorities find out, this is provable stuff. This is provable stuff. When the NYPD finds out,
is Ivan Lopez a jihadist? Is Ivan Lopez jihadist?
Who?
Ivan Lopez, the U.S. specialist soldier who killed people in Fort Hood on April 2nd.
I have no idea, and that's what we're not talking about. We're talking about the mayor of New York. Mr. Sablani, you want to stay on point, please?
Is Ivan Lopez a jihadist? I would have added, is, Cliven Bundy a jihadist? Are the militia people who are pointing guns at the government officials, are they jihadists? Is Frazier Glenn Miller a jihadist? Because he went hunting for people and killed 3 people. Is he a jihadist? This is the kind of sick stuff that gets broadcast every single day over and over again, but completely avoiding the difficult conversation of who is and who is not in the struggle against the U.S. government. And that's what a jihadist is. It's somebody who is a Muslim who is trying to overthrow the U.S. government by violence. If you don't think that what's going on at the Bundy Ranch and that there's now all these guys from Oklahoma that are pouring into Nevada, locked and loaded with their weapons, which is illegal. It's illegal to carry weapons over state lines for the purpose of threatening federal officers is a crime in this country. Still, it's like one of the only gun laws we have. And they managed to break it. It's kind of like we have no campaign finance laws either, but every once in a while you'll see somebody go, an ethics violation for campaign finance reform. And you just think to yourself, geez, how stupid are you? You could practically take the check on the House floor. You really got to go out of your way to break campaign finance laws. You really got to go out of your way to break gun laws because there really aren't any. But this is what the Supreme Court said today. We don't need any protections for minorities in this country. And if the voters decide they don't want any protections for minorities in everything from school admissions to, I just can't wait for the, and I probably won't be around when they do what's this? The store, Hobby Lobby. I probably won't be around when the Hobby Lobby case is decided, but that's the gay one. That's the one that says, gay people can be lorded over by their employers, and if their employers are of a certain religion and the employees are not, well, too bad. The board of directors gets to say what goes up inside your, vajayjay there. They get to say, what your vaginal canal can be exposed to and what it can't be exposed to. I mean, it's so off the hook. It is so out of control. It is such a mess. And now that you have, the Supreme Court coming down with these decisions, pronouncing racism is over, and we don't need to integrate our schools, and we don't need to, the promise of diversity in higher education means nothing, and that if the voters, white people in this country, 80%, if white people in this country decide that they don't want to, listen to the story of somebody who's not white, but they do want to listen to the story of a legacy whose parents went to that school to give them extra points on their admissions documents, well then, it's up to the voters to decide. It's just amazing. It's such a sick twist that the Supreme Court thinks this is all behind us, really, especially when you consider what's going on, currently. John in Dallas.
Hey, Randy.
Hey.
Hey, I think in terms of that guy who was on, the Muslim guy who was on O'Reilly, and if he's an editor of a Muslim newspaper,
yeah.
I bet if you asked him,
an Arab newspaper.
He was an editor of a paper that had a, wasn't that his title?
Yeah, he's the publisher of an Arab newspaper.
I bet if you asked the publisher of the Detroit Free Press if there are any white supremacists or white hate groups in the Detroit area or in Michigan or in the country, for that matter, that he's ever heard of, I think if he'd say no, I don't think it would be credible. And I think if he said yes, I don't think that would indict every white man in America like you think that his.
No, but that's because
somebody would indict.
That's because
Muslim,
that's because separatist movements are trackable.
Some of them are. I mean, as far as
most of them are. The Michigan militia movement is trackable. The Southern Poverty Law Center keeps track of these militia groups.
I know they do.
So it's trackable. But you're asking this guy who's simply, you're asking this guy. If you asked the editor of the publisher of the New York Times if there were any, whatever group in New York, you think he would know?
I'm sure he would.
I don't think he would.
New York has the fourth largest amount of hate groups in the whole country. It's your state of Florida, Georgia, and then New Jersey.
Yeah, because they're trackable. But you can't track.
And so why wouldn't he know if they're trackable? Why wouldn't he know about them?
I'm saying that there are hate groups in this country that are trackable, and then there are others that aren't.
Of course, and some of them are Muslim. And some of them.
Where are these Muslim hate groups?
I'm sure there are some. I mean,
You're sure, but you don't know. You can't tell me where to look to see where they're. But I can track militias.
It's almost like you can't talk about them because.
It's not like I can't talk about them. It's that there's no data.
This nut who goes and kills these people a couple of days ago. Everybody screams from the mountaintop he's a white supremacist nut.
Because he said he was.
I know.
And he's still alive and still claims that he is. So that's knowable.
Soldiers down at Fort Hood, he shot 13 soldiers yelling Allah Akbar, and they said it was workplace violence.
You know, something, this is Allah Akbar is something that somebody who knows they're going to die, who is Muslim, says.
Well, why did he attack? But he also was.
That is the last word. Those are the, it's just like a Christian, the last words out of their mouth, might, you know, before they die might be Jesus Christ.
But here's the difference. The president told
There's no difference.
Al-Awlaki, who he was talking to regularly on the internet.
Who?
I mean, Hassan, down at Fort Hood. He was in touch with Al-Awlaki, of course, before we blasted him. And
he totally blasted him.
And so he stood up and yelled, Allah Akbar, shot 13, killed 13 people.
So this now means, that the publisher of an Arab newspaper knows
about Muslim terrorists.
He knows about Muslims in Michigan.
I don't know where he knows about them, but I bet he knows.
But that's what he asked him, right?
If he isn't, unless he's totally unconnected.
Oh, yes.
He's got to have sources. His people have to have sources.
Sources to Al-Qaeda?
Not Al-Qaeda. Any Muslim extremist within our borders. I mean, it's not unheard of.
Who are these Muslim extremists within our borders? Who are they? Where are they?
That's the question. Well, I'm sure.
Where's the violence? I mean, I haven't seen any. Have you since September 11th? Have you seen any?
There was a CARE group in Richardson, Texas, several years ago.
There was what?
They busted a CARE. It was an affiliation of CARE, and they arrested and they shut down the mosque.
Right.
This was pre-9/11 because they were filtering money over to Hamas, and so that was a cell that was operating for several years.
All right, and now post 9/11, do you think?
Because they were within their.
And now post 9/11, do you think that a publisher of a newspaper is tracking Al Qaeda, or do you think that that's something that the government does?
But I think.
So how would he know?
I don't think he knows about specific cases, but I think.
But that's what he was asked, right? And he said, and his answer was that if he knew, his answer was that if he knew, he would call the FBI. And Bill O'Reilly's answer, Bill O'Reilly's answer was that he has called the FBI, and he produced absolutely no information as a newsman, like who he called the FBI on.
It's not a news show; it's an opinion show.
Okay, it's an opinion show, but he said affirmatively, "I called the FBI." On who?
I mean,
on who? Are you not curious to know who Bill O'Reilly called the FBI? Because I know that the only people that Bill O'Reilly ever called the FBI on. Well, the only time I ever heard Bill O'Reilly call the FBI on anybody was one of his callers on his old radio show, because he has caller ID and I do too, and he didn't like that the caller disagreed with him, so he threatened the caller with calling Fox Security. Remember that?
So he called Fox Security. What's Fox Security? What's the correlation between Fox Security and the FBI?
No, and then he called the FBI to report this guy who was calling his radio show to disagree with him.
He called the FBI.
Not on Muslims.
Well, but here's the thing.
Because he doesn't know any. He just keeps insinuating that they're all out there.
Oh, I know. But here's the thing.
I know you know. So why are you calling me?
Here's the point. I was calling about the affirmative action thing because I don't think it's right that P. Diddy's son gets a full ride if there's any affirmative action tied to it, and a person of a middle-class background who has to struggle to go to college can't go.
Well, how do you think that we define equal opportunity in this country?
I think affirmative action was a great idea at the time.
I'm asking you a different question. I'm asking you, how do you think, when we created affirmative action, how did we attempt to define what equal opportunity would eventually look like? Because we did define it. When you write law, you have to define your terms. The first part of any law is the definitions part. So somebody thought of this, right? Right? Somebody thought of this. So what did we define equal opportunity as being?
If you're black, you have a space above a white person, is what is reality.
No, we didn't say reverse discrimination was the goal. No, that would be incorrect. What did we define equal opportunity to be?
I'm telling you what reality is because my daughter's in college.
I'm telling you what the law says.
A black kid goes to college with affirmative action.
So George Bush, who was a C student, gets into Yale.
But then again, he had a higher grade point average than
John
who? Kerry, who he beat who he won the election from.
Who? Then who? He had a higher GPA than who?
What was Barack Obama's grades?
I have no idea because he never released his transcripts.
Bush's grades, but we don't know Barack Obama's grades.
Because George Bush was bragging about how he was how he was a C student and got into Yale. He thought that was braggadocious. Okay, that's why we never ask for presidents' transcripts ever. Oh my God, there is a definition of what equal opportunity is in this country, and it's not reverse discrimination. That was not the goal. It is simply proportionate representation based on census data. You understand? So that if you have 11% of the population who are African American, you should have proportionate representation in state schools. We're not talking Ivy League here. That's the definition of equal opportunity. That's the goal of affirmative action. 10 till.
Randi Rhodes.
RandiRhodes.com. Separating man from monkey since 2002. This is the Randy.
Join us online at 1480kphx.com. This is Progressive Radio in Phoenix, 1480 KPHX. A celebrity with perfect, smooth, hair-free skin. I always want to know how they do it. So I asked some of my friends, and they gave me an insider secret for getting very smooth skin without any hassle. They use No Pro. Celebrities, models, they have been tossing their razors and expensive salon treatments and switching to No Pro for weeks, not days, weeks of long-lasting results. Literally the best way to remove unwanted hair without any pain, whether it's your legs, arms, bikini line, face, you name it. And guys, it's great for your chest and back, whatever. You will love how easy this is to use, but you'll especially love the professional results that you get all from home. I'm telling you, ditch the razors, ditch the salon treatments, switch to No Pro. You will be absolutely thrilled. No Pro comes with a 100% 60-day money-back guarantee. Plus, when you purchase, No will give you a $50 gift card to a dermatologist-recommended and award-winning skincare line, plus a free travel case. Go to TalkNoNo.com, get these free gifts. TalkNoNo.com, TalkNoNo.com. Seriously, racism is over, and I'm so relieved. I have lived long enough. I have been to the mountaintop. I have seen the promised land. Free at last. Oh, yeah. Well, still, if you're white in America, 35% of you will get a college degree. If you're black in America, only 18% of you will get a college degree. And if you're Hispanic, only 12% of you will get a college degree. That is not equal opportunity in those numbers. There's no there. And the reason is because we don't have an end to racism. If you're a legacy, though, and you're a C student, or if you're a legacy and you're a D student, John Kerry, I believe, was a D student. I think he had a 76 average and got like 5 Ds or something like that. It's as long as you were born as a member of the Lucky Sperm Club, you don't have to worry about college admission. But if you're, somebody who, comes from a background where there's a lack of opportunities, there's no SAT preparation. There's no college admissions process in your school just because of where you grew up. There's, a constant, crime, element around you. There's whatever, screw you. Supreme Court said, the voters can decide. So what you have here is like 80% of the American people deciding on what should happen to the other 20%. The majority is going to dictate what the minority can and cannot do. That's modern. That's moving right into the future. Carol in New York City.
Randy.
Yeah.
Honey, flee. Don't wait. Flee now. After listening to that last call, I just want you to put down the microphone and just walk away today because, oh, my God.
You see what I mean here? You see what I mean?
Let me tell you something, honey. I couldn't wait until the very end to call you because I start crying again like I did the last time, and I don't want to do that.
No, don't cry.
So I'm not. I'm not going to cry. Because you know why I'm not going to cry? Because seriously, Randy, the last time when I hung up the phone, I said to my husband, I think Randy's walking away. I think Randy is walking away because I think Randy has done what she came here to do. And it's time for Randy to do Randy now.
Exactly.
And let me tell you something, Randy.
Exactly. You know, this is what I don't think anybody really gets. This day of ours starts at 7:30 in the morning every morning. Then we work. Yeah, and we work. We work straight through. I mean, I take a break at 12 o'clock or 12:30, depending on what day it is, to get in my car, to drive here, and then I sit in this tiny little office with very beautiful, I had my friend painted them for me, lilac, very calming, very soothing.
Part of my birthstone color because
I love that color. I love purple.
And all that good stuff.
I love purple and I love orange. I know it's weird, but I like them. Not together, but I
love it.
I do. So anyway, then I sit in my office and I put my head down and I start reading everything that I selected for the show materials in the morning, right? And I start reading through it and I start putting everything together to see what is this story telling me. This is what I always tell people. Take all the news of the day and lay it side by side and see if there's connective tissue. See if there's one story being told, and almost always there is one story being told. And then, you do that until 2 o'clock. And then at 2 o'clock you come in here, and then you come in here and you set it all up, right? And then you start to organize all these sound bites, which, I have to manage 30 pieces of sound every day, which is a separate thing from the reading. And then think of a way and then you got to write the blog, and then you have to have people post it for you, and all this other thing. I mean, there's so much. And then you work straight through to 6 o'clock. Then you get in the car, you drive home. Then you kiss your honey hello. You sit down, you shove some food into your face. Sometimes, you actually are in the mood to cook something. And then you eat, and then you start all over again watching the freaking news.
All over again. And Randy...
And you know something? If I really felt it was making a huge difference, if I could see the sand shifting, if I could see the Supreme Court responding, if I could see Congress responding, if I could see that 80% of the American people who want background checks, or 80% of the American people who want immigration reform, or 90% of the American people who want a raise in the minimum wage, if I could see a light at the end of the tunnel that that the American people were going to get heard, I would keep on fighting. But we're not. We're not getting heard. The money that the Supreme Court let into this election process is drowning out everybody.
It is, Randy. And, over the years, you've helped me through a lot of things. And, I made a lot of my money from doing commercials. And I could tell the shift in commercials. I know that sounds weird to a lot of people who have not been in the business, but when the commercials started taking this shift away from, like you said yesterday, the dilute products and products for people and
dilute, really. Listen, let me tell you something. This is how you market to the American people these days. And, God love them because apparently they're successful. You have to market underwear that doesn't have stank. Really? This is where we're at?
This is where we're at, and you can't even...
That and catheters.
Don't get me wrong. I am so grateful for what I've been able to do. But one of my biggest regrets about all of this is, I know this is going to sound crazy, but in some ways, like, Oprah is your Oprah, but yours has been like my mini Oprah in a lot of ways because you was an oasis for me to come to, because I used to think, is it just me? Have I lost my mind? Because I love to read. I love to be challenged. I love to think. And I used to just think, what in the world is going on?
It's money. It's all money. It truly is. It really is. It's all about money. Whoever can give it can buy whatever they want. They can buy the media. They can buy the legislators. They can buy the Senate. They can buy the presidency. And you know, unless, and all this money is for one thing only, and that is to persuade you, just like all advertising, to persuade you to vote a certain way. And if that fails, this is why it's such a racket, and this is why it's corrupt. Not only is it corrupt because it drowns out what 80% of the American people are for, but it's corrupt because if it looks like in the polling that the people are coming, and the people are showing up, and the people are against what the money wants, then the money will actually make sure that the vote is suppressed. Either the ballot will be funky, the questions will be confusing, or the little dots won't line up, or you have to show 9 forms of ID, or people in rural areas that are used to taking the bus to the polling place don't have the bus provided, or if you vote on a Sunday, they take that away from you. You know what I'm saying? They will find a way to keep the people from being heard. That's why it's unsustainable, and that's why it's corrupt. This basically is what explains all the anger in America.
Absolutely.
Really, everybody's angry. The right wing is angry.
Can I just say this?
The lunatics are angry. The smart people are angry. The intellectuals are angry. Everybody's angry. Right.
You know, but I have to say this to you, because on May 16th, I will silently sit here and I'll raise my glass. I never got to take you for that beer in New York, but I'll have my glass of martini, 3 olives and vodka, and and I will raise that glass to you.
That's like a meal.
Because of what you've done so much to influence where we are right now for thinking people. And
listen, I could tell you this. When I see that 85% of us agree on anything, I know that things are, pretty good as far as influencing people to read and think and make decisions. However, there's no chance that people can sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Do you know what I'm saying? No. You have to go out there. You have to get up. You have to go out. You have to leave the microphone. You have to leave the living room. You have to leave the television. You have to leave the house. And you have to go out there because you have to help people vote. It's the only day that everybody has an enormous amount of power.
And it's my purpose right now. That's where I am. That's what I'm trying to do in terms of channeling resources into getting people registered, into getting people the IDs that they need, and all of these crazy hoops that they have to go through, and getting them to the polls on Election Day, because this, seriously, the people say this cliche, but this is seriously the most important election that we could ever,
Carol, every election is the most important election we can ever have. Every one of them. They all have consequences. All of them. All of them. But if you want to see the United States move forward and get into the 21st century, then you have to give the president a Congress that he can work with, because Congress is
the policies that this man has always been about.
Of course, and if you want a jobs package, this ain't the Congress. If you want immigration reform, this isn't your Congress. If you want the end to voter suppression, this isn't your Congress. This isn't your Senate. This isn't a Senate that will confirm a person to the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department who oversees elections, okay? The whole nation is being held hostage by a Congress. It isn't the president that's the problem. It isn't Republicans and it isn't Democrats that are the problem. The problem is oligarchy versus democracy. That is the problem. 19 after.
Randi Rhodes.
Turn up your mind. Here. Now, back to Randi Rhodes.
So, during the break, I just wanted to make sure, I was right, because Carol referred to the caller before her and how ridiculous that person really is from Dallas, Texas. I think your name was John, right? I always believed, see, this is the difference between you and me, John. You have your thoughts, I have mine, and I always believed that the reason why Major Hassan was not charged with terrorism is because he was being court-martialed, and that the U.S. military does not, in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, has a charge of terrorism, and that the prosecutors would not be able to prosecute him in a court-martial setting because if you charged him with terrorism, they would have nothing to charge him with, and actually he could have walked, and that's why it's worth. So I looked it up. See, this is the difference between you and me. We all have thoughts. But I wanted facts, not thoughts. Prosecutors did not pursue terrorism or act of terror because courts martial under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, UCMJ, do not currently include such a charge. Acquiescence to the demand that Major Hassan be deemed an enemy combatant would have created far more legal confusion, making the prosecution's case more difficult to prove. That's why it was filed as workplace terrorism. There is no charge under the UCMJ. Oh, I'm sorry, you're a civilian. All these people with very strong thoughts about the military and how it conducts its business. I think maybe instead of worrying about Hassan's charge, which isn't available under the UCMJ of terrorism or act of terror, not available, and instead of worrying about that, do you give any thought to the fact that women who are raped in the military have to go through the chain of command under whom the person who raped her will also serve? And that the commander gets to decide who's more valuable, the woman who was raped or the guy who raped her? Think that's fair? So apparently there are problems with the UCMJ not including a charge of terrorism available to a prosecutor in a courts-martial. But that is just a fact. So hopefully the right wing, will stop saying, why didn't they charge him? What these opinion shows, as you say. These opinion shows on Fox News, these opinion shows on talk radio, these thousands and thousands and thousands of hours that talk about this, just refuse to ever look it up. What, they weren't curious? Okay, maybe they're dolts and they have no curiosity whatsoever. But you would think that since they have a Standards and Practices Department, oh, that's right, the vice president of Fox Standards and Practices was running around trying to identify all the victims of Malaysian Flight 370 in order to get them to waive their legal rights to sue whomever is found responsible for. Yeah, that's what they're busy doing. Not fact-checking. But that's why Hassan was not charged. That's why, with terrorism, because it's the charge isn't available in the military. All right, Dan in Dillon Beach, California.
Hi, Randy.
Hello.
So I listen to your show, and I kind of listen to the news, and I think, what a weight that must be when you're done at the end of the day. I mean, my blood pressure is just through the roof, just being so angry. But I wanted to kind of reminisce on your show a little bit. One day, it was almost 3 o'clock, and it was the 2010 election, and you're putting out a spleen trying to get people to go to the polls, and somebody called in with this weird conspiracy theory, Obama's not doing enough, or he's cutting deals in the back room, and you just kind of like listen to her, let her go on, and then you hung up and you're like, that's it, I'm going home. That was like the last word of the day. And I thought that was so funny. And then I was listening to Stephanie Miller the next day, and she told the same story. She told it better. It was funnier when she said it.
Yeah, she's funny.
Yeah.
And you're not. No, but I mean, no, honest to God. Really, people had a million reasons not to vote in 2010 on the Democratic side of things. And I was like, okay, you can only do what you can do. And if they don't want to go out and vote, it's a census year. Maps are going to be drawn. Districts are going to be created. You can live with yourself. Then, I'm going home. And that's where I will go on May 16th. I'm going home. You can only do so much to get people to vote for their own best interests.
Randi Rhodes.
Turn up your mind. Here, now. This is the Randi Rhodes Show.
Eleanor in South San Francisco.
Randy, my queen, I am here. First of all, I want to say thank you. And I'm going to thank you for something you did back in 2010, because I had the pleasure of bringing my husband and my 2 children to Yoshi's to see you in San Francisco.
Oh, I remember that.
And I want you to know, it was his last thing that he did. I had 2 treats for him because his birthday was coming. Unfortunately, we got to see you, but we didn't get to see Eric Clapton because he was diagnosed with a serious illness, and he has since passed away.
Yeah.
However, he always remembered the fact that you hugged him and you kissed him, and he bragged to everybody about it. But I want to thank you for that. And I also want to tell you, I was listening to the podcast yesterday's podcast before your show, and it was hysterical because everybody that called up was freaking out. They didn't hear what you were saying, which is, I'm tired. I'm not doing this anymore.
Exactly.
You beat your head against the wall as long as you could. I have to tell you, I've been watching you on the live broadcast, and I've been saying for weeks, I said, you know, she's tired. She's had it with these people. She's had it with the American people who are not stepping up and taking care of themselves and, you know, thinking about other people in this country. There are like a lot of single-minded things going on here. So I understand where you're coming from. I feel your pain, and I want you to know that I totally understand. As much as it's going to kill me, I know I can't go online and I can't do anything to see you or hear you on radio or TV anymore. I'm hoping that you will consider, if someone calls you, to do a talk show like maybe Bill Maher, who I have been relentless in emailing him and trying to get him to put you on, because you would be such a wonderful addition to his panel. But I just want you to know that how much I appreciate you. I know that I'm not alone in this, but I'm hopeful that you get a good rest, and maybe you can take a look at this and think of some way that we can maybe hear you in the future if you write a book or you do some column or something. I don't want you to disappear into the sunset, because, Randy, hands down, and I mean this when I say this, hands down, you are the best progressive talk person on TV, on the radio, on the Internet, and I so appreciate the fact that you've given us so much to work with and help so many people understand what is really going on in our country, and I really do. I revere you.
Oh,
really
well,
do.
You're right. What do you want me to say to that? I mean, I never know what to say to that. Thank you. I will tell you this, you know, the whole thing was, you know, and anybody that works with me will tell you that if we're going to do it, we're going to do it better than anybody. We're going to do it, you know, fact-based. We're going to check our facts. We're going to cross-check our facts. We're never going to, you know, we're going to get it right, and if we get it wrong, we're going to say we got it wrong. We're going to fix it. I mean, there's no point in doing it if you're not doing it, you know, well, if you're not really doing something important.
Exactly.
There is no reason to spend 60 hours of your life doing, you know, a week, doing a job and doing it half-assed. And I will never do it. I will never do it like that. And so unless there is an environment in which, you know, the 60 hours are actually worth something, you know, I'm not doing it.
Exactly. And, well, you know, that's what's wrong with, like, I mean, I used to watch MSNBC. I'm off it. I only watch snatches of it because it's the same thing rehashed over and over, and they are not necessarily dealing with facts all the time. And I do like the shows, but, you know, it's a lot better than Fox, of course, but I just...
Fox is fake. Listen, there is a difference. Fox is completely and utterly fabricated. It is totally made up. It is totally fake. It's totally paid for. Right. Everybody is operating at the behest of an agenda, not at the behest of facts as you find them or reality as it presents itself. They ignore what's inconvenient. It's a propaganda outfit. It really is. There's just no question about it. And you know, the MSNBC, they try, you know, I mean, their facts are good, but they're limited in what they cover.
Absolutely.
And it's just and CNN, God knows what they're doing there. What are they doing?
They're playing, Randy. That's what they're
I was going to say, I'll make you a bet. You know, if they, do you think, here's my question, do you think they'll find the plane before May 16th?
No.
I don't either.
I don't think they're going to find that plane for years if they do.
I mean, me neither. But they won't stop. They're not going to stop. And it's just so, the whole landscape is so freaky that I just don't want to be part of the hypocrisy of it all.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. And I've been looking at your face going, oh, my God, she is so tired of this crap.
I am. I am.
These people calling up, and they're so... You want to just beat them. I want to take a nurse.
I don't want to beat them. I don't want to beat them. I am onto this new thing, and I swear to God, I mean this. I want to ostracize them and shame them.
Well, you know that you did a good job of that. I got to tell you.
Yeah, that's what I'm into.
Good today because he couldn't say anything. He was
because he didn't know what he was talking about, but none of them do. No, they don't. They really don't because they listen to propaganda all day long. And the reason why the machine is still cranking out the propaganda is because it muddies the water. It defeats the spirit. It makes people feel like there's no way out.
That's right. Hopeless. And I got to tell you, while I'm sitting here talking to you, I am actually online applying for a job in the elections office in San Francisco.
Oh, that's great.
That's what I have to do. I mean, because I see that if I don't do something, then it's everybody has.
And let me say this: this is why it's so important. People are going to go, yeah, well, she's in San Francisco. No. That's why it is important because Democrats get very smug. And they just think someone else will do it. I live in San Francisco. It doesn't matter. And then you don't show up. And lo and behold, you end up with Darrell Issa.
Absolutely. And I don't live down there. I mean, I'm thinking, you can't call his office from here. They don't let you call. They'll say, they'll have a way of figuring out where you're calling from.
Yeah.
And they say, you're not in our zip code.
Right. You're not in our district.
Leave a message.
Right. But, I wonder what happens when the Koch brothers call and they're not in the district. They're like in Kansas somewhere. Is there a special, like unblock thing that they can press,
God.
I know. God. Well, thank you.
Listen, baby doll, I absolutely adore you.
Thanks.
And I hope to see you sometime in the near future. Everybody call Bill Maher. Put her
For
on
what reason? All these years, he's never once extended an invitation. Never.
I've come to the conclusion.
And I got news for you. Our friends at MSNBC have never once asked me either. So I don't
get it. And I sent them emails too. I'm like, you put these with the same people on all the time, which is why I stopped watching them. Because they just recycle the same opinion on different shows. You can see the same person on 3 or 4 different shows.
There's more than 3 news stories. There's just more than 3 news stories, I mean, for me, it's like all Fox does is, we hate Muslims, we hate black people, and Benghazi. And Benghazi. CNN is just doing this freaking airplane to the point where it takes your breath away. It really does freak me out. I really do. I mean, I cannot understand what they're doing.
I know.
And then MSNBC, it's like a little news and then Christie. A little news and then Christie.
Yeah, there it is. And on every.
I mean, why can I recognize the New Jersey legislature? I mean, how come I could recognize them? I'm not supposed to know what they look like. They're New Jersey legislators. And now I know, I don't even have to have the sound on. Oh, look, there's Loretta Weinberg. Right? How do I know her name?
And we don't want to.
I don't.
I want to know. I'm in San Francisco. I don't care.
Right.
I don't care about this.
I know.
It's a mess.
It's a mess. It is.
Love you, kiddo.
Thank you. Love you more. Thank you so much. Where are we going? Charles in New York.
Randy?
Charles in charge.
How are you, dear?
Mm-hmm.
I love you.
I love you.
And let me tell you something. If the Allen ever mess up, I'm here.
Allen?
Is that his name?
That's my dog.
I always get them confused.
Howard. Howard's my dog, too, though.
How is the dog? How is the dog, okay? Because I don't hear you speak about him.
Allen's fabulous. Allen's the most amazing dog ever. Allen is, Howard's service dog now. He's in service, and he's an amazing animal.
Good. Listen,
Howard too.
Real quick.
And the dog too.
May I commend you for your grande huevos and speaking truth to power. May I also say that you're one of the few on the air that uses critical thinking.
Thank you.
And that guy from Texas, this is a result of all this old news that we get.
Yeah, poor John. I think John's got potential, though. I think if John actually could read a newspaper or get a newspaper or, stop wrapping fish in newspapers and, go to the bathroom with a newspaper, sit there, be one with it. Even Vanity Fair would work for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, read something that doesn't have Max at the end of it, or read something that doesn't, have, like, the Blaze. You know what I mean? Like, that isn't paid for by the Tea Party. Something independent, something, that's actually informative, something that could tell you things like there is no charge of terrorism available in a court-martial, and this is why they charged him with workplace violence, because it was easy to prove. Do you know what I mean? And we wanted a conviction, and we wanted to get rid of him. You know what I mean? I think he has potential. Like Kit DeLuca. I think he got potential. Rhonda in Ypsilanti, Michigan.
Oh, my dear sister Randy, I love you so much.
My sister Rhonda, I love you too.
I appreciate you. I'm gonna miss you like crazy.
Listen, you know what? You remind me. Let me give the schedule just so people don't wig out. Okay. Okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm working through the end of the week. I had planned my vacation. I haven't had a vacation since Christmas. So I planned my vacation, and I'm still taking it because I have to go down to Costa Rica and prepare the house, and the kids are all coming, and this is their break from school, and, we said we're going. So we're going. So I'm going for a week, and Nicole will be sitting in, obviously. I will come back.
Okay.
I will be back, I think May 2nd is that Monday, and then we'll do the last 2 weeks together, okay? And May 16th will be the last day. So this vacation was planned a long time ago, and I'm still taking it because the kids are coming, and one is in, law school, and the other one just got her master's, and she's, they're available, and we're all going.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Well, I have to say how much I appreciate you and your voice, and hopefully that voice will show up in other places. But I did want to call and tell you that I got into it on Facebook with somebody who had the audacity to compare Cliven Bundy to, wait for it, Harriet Tubman.
What?
Yes.
What?
Yes. Harriet Tubman, Randy.
So, let's see.
Did he really go there on me? Really?
If Harriet Tubman was caught by the authorities in the South, I think she would have been prepared to sacrifice her life for the greater good of those who would stand on her shoulders. And Cliven Bundy is a deadbeat. So, yeah, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same.
Totally the same. I was so offended. I was like, you cannot even be serious. Like, to me, that is such a perfect example of the lack of understanding.
See, well, this is because people they truly don't get the difference between civil disobedience, where you're willing to pay the penalty under the law. If you get, if you get arrested, you will go limp and you will go with the police. If you're put in jail, you will sit in jail and write letters, right, inspiring others, and that your cause is a cause to benefit the greater good. Insurrection, on the other hand, is an act of utter and complete selfishness.
Yeah. I was just like, you can't be serious. And it's like, it also is indicative.
Yeah, they've compared Cliven Bundy to just about Rosa Parks, I heard.
Right.
I heard Gandhi, because, of course, I remember Gandhi's militia of AK-47 wielding, thugs coming in from out of state, Yeah, I remember that.
Well, Randy, my love,
yeah.
I totally get it. When your job gets to a point where it makes it impossible for you to live your purpose, you got to move on. I had to do the same thing last year, so I get it. I'm going to miss you, but
I'll miss you too.
And taking care of yourself, honey.
Well, you're a brave woman, and so am I, and so we have that in common, and we always will.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love you, Rhonda. So, yeah, it's the same. Rosa Parks sat down on a bus for the greater good. She actually paid her bus fare, though. Cliven Bundy, on the other hand, is a deadbeat who steals the resources of the taxpayers and encourages snipers to come and kill federal agents. It's the same. It's identical. The idea of critical thinking in this country is it's shot to crap. You know that. It's gone. It's really gone. Maybe next hour I'll read you this, how facts backfire and what the psychology of it is. it's one of the most amazing. It's kind of like Stockholm syndrome, where you say, but like you say, but she was kidnapped by this guy. You're telling me she fell in love with this guy? That's the guy that took away her freedom. Right. Well, that's Stockholm syndrome. Well, this is kind of like that. 48 after.
Randi Rhodes.
I do know one thing for sure. That we do not want a civil war, and we do not want, we just want a big government calm down here, and we'll work things out. But we're not in the negotiating mood. We're not going to negotiate with big government. We're not going to negotiate with BLM. We're only going to back up and strengthen our county sheriff and hope he does his job. And that's where our Constitution puts us.
Yeah, that's exactly what Harriet Tubman said. I'm not going to negotiate with the feds. I'm just going to have people come from Oklahoma with sniper rifles and point them at the federal government. It's the same. It's exactly the same. John in St. Louis.
Yeah, I just wanted to call and say I'm really going to miss you. I know you always say read and stuff like that, but I'm totally blind, so you were my only lifeline to the truth. So I'm just really going to miss you. I've been a long time listener. First time I called, but I'm really going to miss you.
Well, I will miss a lot of you. Not all of you, but a lot of you. I will. There's no question. And, about 3 months out, it's going to start to, get to me. But whatever. It's like I just said to Carol and to others, you've got to be brave. You have to be brave. This, for me, you know what this life is about? Conquering fear. That's what it's about. That's what it's always been about. And if you're not brave enough to go out there and try something else and leave the comfort of, the daily grind behind, and there is some comfort in a routine, you know that. The idea that everything is, where you left it and that things are going to be the same tomorrow as they were today, there's some comfort in that monotony.
Yeah.
Right? But to be brave...
Yeah, I know about change.
Yeah, right. I mean, if I moved your living room furniture around, you'd be freaked out, right? Well, that's what's happening here. I'm moving my living room furniture around.
Yeah. My father told me a long time ago, and I told my kids, if other people that went before us, all the stuff they had to go through to vote, and my voting place is a half a block from my house, so, I have no excuse.
No, you don't. That's true. There is no excuse not to vote. There is no excuse, especially for African Americans, not to vote. There's going to be obstacles for people to vote. There's going to be obstacles. There are already obstacles. There are gerrymandered districts, and there are rules in place that are, they could be giant brick walls for a guy like you. But it's nothing new, because there is nothing new. Nothing new under the sun. It's all about showing up.
Nation, I don't mean to alarm you, but Hillary Clinton continues to exist. She is the biggest threat to Republicans in 2016, other than Republicans in 2014. And she has just become more threatening.
We've been anticipating an announcement about Hillary Clinton's future, and today we got one. She's going to be a grandmother.
Now, obviously, news of a grandchild is a joyous occasion, so I just want to take a moment right now to put politics aside and offer the Clinton family a heartfelt congratulations for such a shrewd political move. Right? Right, Fox News?
I think a lot of reporters think maybe this was planned.
Yes. Maybe this was planned, and we all know only the most devious people would ever plan a pregnancy. Clearly, folks, Hillary Clinton has engineered the birth of her first grandchild in a craven political ploy to seem endearing. I mean, not even Barack Obama ever stooped to becoming a grandmother. It's so obvious, folks. Bill and Hillary clearly sat down with their daughter and synced up Chelsea's ovulation cycle with Hillary's campaign calendar. There is no other possible motivation for a couple in their 60s to want their daughter to give them a grandchild. But some naysayers say nay.
You don't think that Chelsea Clinton and her husband are entitled to try to have a baby whenever they want? And they looked at the political calendar, and by the way, if it was going to be planned, it'd be planned for next year when the campaign might actually be underway.
Good point, Howie. If it was planned, the child would be born around the Iowa caucuses. I mean, what a waste of a perfectly good pregnancy.
Now, how could anybody watch that? See, this is what drives me crazy. How could anybody watch that or listen to that or take advice from people who got it so incredibly wrong about major things like the implosion of the United States economy, the housing, Wall Street gamble? How could people who got it incredibly, impossibly wrong on invading Iraq, the need to do it, weapons of mass destruction, how could people go back to them and say, this time they'll get it right? How could they watch this stuff? And, some of the answers might be in, academia. Seriously, I mean, studies have been done on the effectiveness of propaganda, and studies have subsequently been done on the gullibility of the American people and the demise of democracy. And when you lay those three things out, they don't seem to have very much to do with each other unless you put it into context and you realize and you understand that Thomas Jefferson in 1789, founding father, actually said, whenever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government. And that is a big provisional thing. Whenever the people are informed, well informed, they can be trusted with their own government. And, there are people in power that understand that, really, really understand that. They think about it, they understand it, they get it, they know that. And they don't want you to be well informed. And so they work against that. They disinform and misinform, and they do it on purpose. And this is something that has actually been studied. We like to think that the notion of a well-informed electorate being necessary for a democracy to function is a give me. It's just a gimme. And that, presidential debates matter, and that a free press exists, and that, we are able to understand that we're susceptible to ignorance and misinformation, but that there's a remedy for it, that there's real information out there, and that there's real, facts out there, and that we will, in the end, get them. Well, it's not true anymore. A few political scientists started to study this, and they started to discover there is a human tendency, deeply discouraging, to those of us who have faith in the power of information. I always said information was the coin of the realm. It is, but here's the thing. Facts don't necessarily have the power to change people's minds. This is what they found in this study. Facts don't necessarily have the power to change our minds. In fact, quite the opposite. In a series of studies in 2005 and 2006, researchers at the University of Michigan found that when misinformed people, particularly political partisans, were exposed to corrected facts in news stories, they rarely changed their minds. In fact, they often became even more strongly set in their beliefs. Facts, the researchers found, were not curing misinformation. They compared it to a underpowered antibiotic. Facts could actually make the misinformation stronger. Like a underpowered antibiotic can actually allow for more powerful viruses to attack. It bodes ill for a democracy because most voters, the people making decisions about how the country run, aren't blank slates. They already have beliefs and a set of facts lodged into their minds. And the problem is that sometimes the things they think they know are provably false. And the presence of the correct information causes those people to react very differently than people who have no information. Instead of changing disinformed voters' minds as opposed to the merely uninformed voter, it entrenches them even deeper and attaches them even stronger to the misinformation, the disinformation. Quote, the general idea is that it's absolutely threatening to admit you're wrong, says political scientist Brendan Nyan, the lead researcher on the Michigan study. The phenomenon is known as backfire. It's a natural defense mechanism to avoid cognitive dissonance, meaning you've got these false facts, you've got these false notions, false pieces of information in your head, and the real information creates a dissonance between the false stuff that's already deeply embedded in your brain, and so you react in a violent way, meaning you have to disregard or purge the facts from your mind so that they're not in discord with the disinformation. That's why people propagandize, and that's why it works. This is a long-running argument that people have had, people like me especially, about political ignorance, about citizens, and it addresses the bigger question about the nature of human intelligence and democratic ideals, right? Most of us like to believe that our opinions have been formed over time by very careful, rational consideration of facts and ideas, and that the decisions we make based on those facts and ideas have the ring of soundness and intelligence. But the truth is that a lot of opinions are based on beliefs. And the beliefs don't have a very easy relationship with facts. And rather than having the facts drive your beliefs, beliefs actually drive and dictate the facts that you choose to accept. And so you can twist facts so that they fit better with your beliefs, with your preconceived notions. And you can uncritically accept bad facts so that they fit better with your preconceived ideas. Like asking this Muslim publisher or this Arab news publisher if he knows of any Muslims in Michigan who are terrorists. I mean, why would you even think to ask a question like that? It's because you're reacting to your own belief that Muslims are terrorists. It's because you're reacting to your own disinformation that Muslims are terrorists, when the last two acts of terrorism that we've just recently experienced, and some of you won't even be able to recall them, even though they just happened from a white supremacist, a self-proclaimed anti-Semitic white supremacist who called the Southern Poverty Law Center, had conversations with their intelligence department, and told them, I am a bad man, I do violence in the name of my race, you should check my record, I will do violence in the name of my race. People can't even remember his name. Frazier Glenn Miller. And Ivan Lopez, who just shot up Fort Hood. And all that did was remind the people who cannot have this cognitive dissonance in their head, think about Hassan in Fort Hood, and that he was protected. See, this is how the conspiracy goes. He was protected by the Obama administration because he was never charged with terrorism. His violent crime was classified as workplace violence. And the uncritical mind doesn't say, gee, that's weird. That really is weird, because that is weird. There's no question that's weird. But the uncritical mind doesn't say, why is that? The uncritical mind dismisses the fact that Ivan Lopez was a Puerto Rican American and that Frazier Glenn Miller was a white supremacist. And it forces them never to ask the question, why was Hassan? And the answer is clear. The military has no charge. There is no charge, act of terror, and there is no charge of terrorism that you could bring in a court-martial. Doesn't exist in the military code of justice. You might have problems with that, but that is the truth. That's why. So instead it becomes a giant conspiracy just to avoid the cognitive dissonance that is so difficult and uncomfortable for people, and then they vote. And then they vote. And then we have this information glut, which alongside a lot of good information broadcasts endless rumors and misinformation and disinformation and questionable variations on the truth. In other words, it's never been easier for people to be wrong and at the same time feel certain that they're right. The Onion had a headline. You know The Onion, it's satire. They had a headline that said, "Area man, passionate defender of what he imagines the Constitution to be." And that is where we're at. That is where we're at. Clive Bundy, the militia movement. This is just another news story. Just another one, albeit a violent one. One where people are now so emboldened by their desire, well, their belief that they're right in the face of being so freaking wrong about the Militia Act, about the Constitution, about the right to keep and bear arms, about a well-regulated militia being necessary. All these things they're wrong about. They're wrong about when Bundy got there. They're wrong about his family claim, his ancestry. Clive Bundy only started on that land in 1954. His family did. Not in 18 whatever, okay? Not before Nevada was a state. All this is made up crap. But people just accept it because it's too painful to admit they're wrong, and it's too painful to have the truth mingling in their head with what they believe the Constitution to be. And so they just keep, it's the garbage in, garbage out. It's what I've been trying to explain to you. If you program a computer this way, which has no beliefs, computer has no beliefs, and if you program it with some garbagey code, Sean codes all our stuff every day so that it could go up on the website, right? And he sits there and he codes it all day long. If he puts in one wrong number, he gets garbage out. Why? Because he put garbage in. And it's the same with these people. It is a phenomenon. And the only cure for it is shaming people, ostracizing them, or as the Amish like to call it, shunning. Because you all have asked me over the years, and what do I do when my uncle, who I really love, is like a conservative nutbag? There is nothing. You cannot engage that person. And you won't, because you care about your family more than you care about being right. The only thing to do is to shame him, shun him. That's it. Phoenix, call me right now at 866-87-RANDY, 866-877-2634. This is The Randi Rhodes Show on 1480 KPHX. You know, whenever I see a celebrity with perfect, smooth, hair-free skin, I always want to know how they do it. So I asked some of my friends, and they gave me an insider secret for getting very smooth skin without any hassle. They use No Pro. Celebrities, models, they have been tossing their razors and expensive salon treatments and switching to No Pro for weeks, not days, weeks of long-lasting results. Literally the best way to remove unwanted hair without any pain, whether it's your legs, arms, bikini line, face, you name it. And guys, it's great for your chest and back, whatever. You will love how easy this is to use, but you'll especially love the professional results that you get all from home. I'm telling you, ditch the razors, ditch the salon treatments, switch to No Pro. You will be absolutely thrilled. No Pro comes with a 100% 60-day money-back guarantee. Plus, when you purchase, No will give you a $50 gift card to a dermatologist-recommended and award-winning skincare line, plus a free travel case. Go to TalkNoNo.com, get these free gifts. TalkNoNo.com, TalkNoNo.com. Okay, so what do I mean when I tell you that you need to shame people? Well, here's the big picture here. If the people who are either adopting or accepting or even broadcasting misinformation, disinformation, if it had a reputational cost, meaning credibility was, again, everything if you were going to be a news station, and people just, didn't find you credible any longer and just turned it off like CNN. The plane. You know what I'm saying? If there was a reputational cost of peddling bad information, it would discourage people from doing it so often. You know, like when Tim Russert was around, if you went on Meet the Press and you said something dishonest or misleading or something that, flew in the face of some other thing that you said that you were for or that you would do or whatever, and you were confronted with it, you would think twice before you went and did it again. You would think twice before going on Meet the Press again. That is a shame-based solution. That is what Tim Russert did. He shamed politicians into knowing that if they sat down with him on Sunday morning and they lied to him, he would play a clip or a soundbite or find an editorial they wrote or some document that they signed off on or legislation they voted and present it to them right there in real time. And so people thought twice before they sat on that show, and therefore that show became so valuable because you knew that people had thought it through before they appeared on it, and that whatever they were saying either was going to be debunked if it was false, or they would get to make their case if it wasn't, and there would be an air of credibility about what they were saying to the American public. We don't have that anymore, and a shame-based solution is a sensible solution. It is the only solution. We have a culture of fast-talking pundits that are making enormous amounts of money, calling themselves entertainers on their tax returns, and sometimes even in public, as a ditch, right? as a way to get out of the journalism standard, right? So they say that they're entertainers. They don't need to be married to the facts. And you have fact-checking operations that are considered wonky. The entertainers are getting all the glory, and the people who are doing the hard work of debunking or fact-checking or finding the audio clips or showing the hypocrisy or showing the lie or showing the disinformation, we're the ones that are being, punished and considered wonky or considered, marginal or alternative. We're actually alternative to the facts now. Facts have a life. The facts have no life. The rumors and the conspiracies and the theories and the variations on the truth are now in the spotlight. And the facts are somewhere back here in the dungeons of wonkery. It's where we're at. It's the effect that propaganda has. It's why it's being done. It's why people pony up large chunks of change to put it on the air, to make sure it stays on the air. That's what's happened, and shame is the solution.
Organizers with the Oklahoma militia say they have members in Nevada who say Bundy's cattle were unlawfully rounded up by the BLM.
Evidently, here in America, you don't actually own the property anymore, if you ever did.
The roundup sparked an armed standoff, but it wasn't the Bundy family who owns the cattle. It was militia members from across the nation going up against the BLM. Here in Oklahoma, militia members say they have nearly 50,000 volunteers. Members say they are taking Bundy's side and fear this governmental practice could spread to the Sooner State. Scott Shaw says with all of the recent constitutional infringements by the federal government, the Oklahoma Volunteer Militia is ready to take up arms if needed.
It's up to the feds. The ball's in their court. It depends. You can do this legally, or if you want to try to do a land grab violently, you can do that. We're going to resist you.
Shaw says they haven't had to defend Oklahoma from the feds yet, but says it's beginning to become a concern.
Just look around the country. They're doing it everywhere. If they can do it in Nevada, they can do it in Colorado, they can do it in Texas. What's to stop them from coming to Oklahoma? The only thing to stop them is we the people.
He doesn't own the land. You see what I mean? This is what I'm talking about. They have convinced themselves that Clive Bundy was there before Abraham Lincoln wrote the Nevada Constitution. And yes, Abraham Lincoln wrote the Nevada Constitution. Abraham Lincoln needed more votes. He needed more states to end the Civil War. And so he made Nevada a state. It was a political ploy to make Nevada a state. And Abraham Lincoln did do that. Look up the longest telegram ever sent, and you'll see that it was the Constitution of Nevada that was sent by Morse code, okay? That's what happened. And one of the things that they did when they made Nevada a state was they claimed the land for the federal government. That's what Abraham Lincoln did. Cliven Bundy never owned the land that he's on, but you can't tell that to a militia member. You can't tell that to Sean Hannity. You can't tell that to Cliven Bundy, who believes that his ancestral claims predate the Nevada Constitution, except this thing has been in court, and the courts have written otherwise.
This land is unusually fertile and green for southern Nevada. Cliven Bundy grows melons here. They're said to be the best in the state. And his cattle, until recently, roamed freely on land managed by the Federal Bureau of Land Management. Before the roundup that sparked protests, confrontations, and gunmen taking a bridge, Cliven Bundy explained his ancestral rights to the I-Team's George Knapp.
My forefathers have been up and down the Virgin Valley here ever since 1877. All these rights that I claim have been created through preemptive rights and beneficial use of the forage in the water and the access and range improvements.
Clark County property records show Cliven Bundy's parents bought the 160-acre ranch in 1948 from Raul and Ruth Levitt. Bundy's family moved from Bundyville, Arizona. Water rights were transferred too, but only to the ranch, not the federally managed land surrounding it. Court records show Bundy family cattle didn't start grazing on that land until 1954.
Okay, so not 1877 Death Valley days. It's only been since 1954. Happy days. You understand this? The Bundys have only been grazing in the area in question since 1954. That was well after the first Native Americans appeared on this continent, but that doesn't stop him from claiming that he's being treated like Native Americans were treated.
One word spreading through Bundy's supporters and his armed guards: what the federal government is doing to Bundy is exactly what they did to Native Americans.
They are literally treating Western United States citizens, ranchers, rural folks like this, are the modern-day Indians. We're being driven off of our lands. We're being asked to, or forced into reservations known as cities.
The local Paiute Indians were forced into reservations by federal troops in 1875.
Yeah.
2 years prior, the tribe was promised the same land. Cliven Bundy now grows his melons, and until recently, grazed his cattle.
So, if there's a land dispute and it's based on ancestral rights, then the land goes to Native Americans, doesn't it? Because Clive has only been there, and his family's only been there since 1954. You know, about the time that cable TV first entered the valley. This is what I'm talking about. There are things that you can read, like court cases, that actually the U.S. District Judge, John Rollison, in the case where it was determined that Bundy would not be allowed to use federal land for his cattle because of his failure to pay grazing fees to the Bureau of Land Management, Rollison wrote that it wasn't until 1954 that, quote, Bundy or his father or both have grazed livestock on public lands owned by the United States and administered by the BLM. The Clark County Recorder documents show that the 160-acre Bunkerville ranch that Bundy calls home was purchased by his parents from Raul and Ruth Levitt. Talk about a mixed marriage. On January 5th, 1948, and the purchase included the transfer to the Bundys of certain water rights, including water from the nearby Virgin River. Cliven Bundy was not born until 1946, and it did not include transference of the federal land or the graze. It's a 160-acre ranch that he owns, which is a melon farming ranch, not a cattle-raising ranch. He needed the space for his cattle, so he just took it. But if truth be told, and Ancestry calls it, then it belongs to Native Americans.
My rights are all older than BLM even existed, and but my rights were created through beneficial use, and so they're Beneficial use means we use the forage and the water from the time the very first pioneers come here.
Early census records show Cliven's maternal grandmother, Christina Jensen, was born in Nevada in 1901. One genealogical researcher says records indicate Jensen helped settle Bunkerville some years later.
They weren't even there until 1948. She wasn't even born. The grandma wasn't even born until 1901. This is all made up. It's totally, totally made up, okay? And so now you've got these crazy militia guys who are willing to start some sort of a civil war or secession or whatever, acts of sedition, acts of treason, pointing loaded weapons at federal officers. And, I just can't imagine, what this would look like if the Native Americans pulled this. I just can't even imagine, where would Fox News be on it? But if we're to believe that ancestral rights trump the statehood of Nevada, right, then that land belongs to American Indians. It belongs to Native Americans and not Cliven. But that does not stop anybody from saying any damn thing that they want to about Cliven Bundy. And when you point out that he should be ashamed, like Sean Hannity ought to be ashamed for the crap that he's doing, for this deadbeat who's lying about who owns this land. Obviously, the federal government owns this land. It was part of the statehood package that Lincoln brokered. So, I will tell you that Ed Schultz pointed out that Sean ought to be ashamed because he's inciting violence, and he is. And instead of answering that question with facts about who owns that land or that it is federal land and that he should have paid his fees like any taxpayer pays his fees, Sean decided to play clips of Ed on his radio show yelling at people, which typically happens on talk radio, and, saying something that Ed Schultz apologized for. He called Laura Ingraham a really, a bad name. Something I've been called, and nobody ever apologized to me because I don't demand apologies. It's rough and tumble. Radio is not a place for the faint-hearted. It's not a place for the meek. It's not a place for the thin-skinned. You're going to have to be called everything in the book in public. But instead of answering any of the questions about the falsehoods, instead of answering any questions about the ownership of this land, instead of condemning, the fact that he's been propping up these militia people who are pointing weapons at federal officers, the law and order Sean Hannity, right? He plays old clips of Ed.
I've had enough with NBC News. Over the past couple of weeks, they've spent countless segments attacking little old me. Here's just one example of left-wing loudmouth, kind of a buffoon, Ed Schultz criticizing this show's coverage, which I'm proud of the Bundy Ranch standoff with the feds. Take a look.
Fox News and Sean Hannity should be ashamed of their coverage of this lawbreaker and this law-breaking Nevada rancher and his family. I think Sean Hannity is cheerleading for armed conflict with the federal government. Hannity and Fox News are playing with fire.
No, the federal government, their lack of proportionality and sense over a bill. Are they going to send 200 armed agents to everybody's house, snipers to everybody's house? Really? Well, we're not ashamed of our coverage. We're actually proud of our coverage. Now, there's not one thing that Ed Schultz said was true. But guess what? If I was a network exec over at NBC News, I might be ashamed of having this man work for me.
The Republicans lie. They want to see you dead. They'd rather make money off your dead corpse.
You damn right Dick Cheney's heart's a political football. We ought to rip it out and kick it around and stuff it back in him.
Do you know what they're talking about? Like this right-wing slut, what's her name, Laura Ingraham? Yeah, she's a talk slut.
But you're a frickin' how about that? Get the out of here. How about that? I mean, I'm sure they hit the 7-second delay on that one.
Now, that tape speaks for itself, but unfortunately that buffoon, Ed Schultz, wasn't the only on-air talent over at NBC to set their hateful sights on me last week.
Okay. So instead of addressing the fact that he should be ashamed of inciting violence against federal officers, instead of saying, you know what, the BLM was out there they're not collecting a bill. and this is the new meme on the right about Cliven Bundy, is that, oh, this is what they do. They send snipers to collect bills. This is the federal government out of control. They went to take the cattle back, to remove the cattle from the land because the land was not being paid for. It's like $1 a head. This man would not pay $1 to use federal land to graze his animals because his ranch isn't big enough to graze the number of cattle that he has. Okay? And they went there to take the cattle back from an armed militia. So apparently, Sean Hannity's theory is that everyone in the country ought to be armed, except for the government. They're the only ones that can't have a gun. They're doing a job that involves dealing with armed militiamen, and they have no place carrying a gun. It's fascinating. It's really interesting.
I want to commend Sean Hannity because he's been really bad on a lot of issues, but he has a lot of courage doing the right thing here. And so I appreciate him being supportive of this. But I think it's because he's a former blue-collar worker and understands property rights and understands that they've already ruined everybody else. How big a deal is it that federal Judge Jones, we have the ruling on Infowars.com, said the BLM is involved in a criminal conspiracy to bankrupt every rancher in Nevada? Yeah. I think that's important evidence, sir.
Yeah, I want to go back to Sean. Definitely, he's my favorite hero, and he's supported me and with this movement. And I appreciate and love him for it. I appreciate, support him 100%.
Cliven Bundy kissing up to Sean Hannity through Alex Jones, which had to peeve Alex Jones. And that just makes me so happy that they're all infighting now. The fact that Cliven Bundy found Alex Jones, well, I think Alex Jones probably found Cliven Bundy because Alex Jones is a bottom feeder, and you know that. Everything's a conspiracy. Alex Jones was saying that Harry Reid is going to stage an attack on his own offices to blame it on Bundy and his supporters. He's saying that if Harry Reid is attacked by anybody at this point, it's a false flag operation by Reid himself. I mean, these people are really, but there are people listening right now that know that what I'm saying is true in their mind, but it's so uncomfortable for them to take the disinformation out of their heads, admit that they're wrong, that these are the facts, that he doesn't own that land, that his family hasn't been there since 1877. They've been there not since, Death Valley days. They've been there since Happy Days, and that they don't own this land. The federal government owns this land, and all that they went to do was remove his cattle because for 20 years he's been in the court and lost every single time. But the right wing, supported by the Tea Party, which always goes strapped even to see the president, is bamboozling these people in our country who don't know what happened to them, don't understand how we got here, don't know that Congress is the body of government that would legislate a jobs package, don't know that Congress is the body that would legislate infrastructure repair, don't know that Congress would extend unemployment, think Obama is the one that can do all this without Congress, and they're wrong. But, they know this, but they cannot kick the false stuff out of their head because there's so much disinformation in there, and it's uncomfortable for them. The cause for that is low self-esteem, believe it or not. And that's why shaming works, meaning there's a reputational cost to somebody who has such low self-esteem that they will believe any moron that steps up to the microphone. You have to make them reputationally unwelcome. We used to say in radio, the only thing we have to offer you is our credibility. Those days are so over. But that's where I was raised, and that's why I have to get it right, because that was pounded into my head.
It calls into question the core ideological beliefs of some of these talk radio hosts if they are running political shows and espousing political positions while taking money and sponsorships from organizations that have a particularly narrow focus, both in terms of candidates, positions on ongoing issues, and promoting those groups candidates. It begs the question, where does the line between the core ideological beliefs of the hosts end, and where does the paid sponsorship start?
Here on cable, the viewer deserves to know when they're watching a paid announcement. On over-the-air radio and TV, the station is required to disclose. It's called sponsor identification. And something that is identified as a commercial is understood as such is one thing, but all of these organic references and treating the sponsor as a news source is where it becomes a very gray area, and the listener, the viewer, might not understand that free speech had a price tag.
And people are getting very rich off of playing you. You are being played by a conservative circle of scam. Sort of a circle jerk, if you will. The right is very busy fleecing each other, and everyone wins. Dick Morris wins, even though Sean Hannity wins, Glenn Beck wins. They all win. You know who the big loser is? The individual who gives their money to the Heritage Foundation. $80 million in $80 million, 300 employees. Assets that would blow your mind, and you're giving them $25. Everybody's got their hand in the till. The only loser is you. You're being played.